Chapter 1, A New Mission. Think fast! Ow! Don't people know by now that I am not good at any sports involving a ball? And yes, that includes catching one. Sorry, TJ, Justin apologized. You were closest to the basket. Our class was playing kickball basketball. If you're not sure what that is, let me explain. Kickball basketball is played on a basketball court. One team lines up in one corner of the court at home plate, and the other team uses the rest of the court as the outfield. First base is the half court corner farthest from home plate. Second base is the basketball pole furthest from home plate. Third base is the half court corner closest to home plate, and home plate is where you started from. It forms a rhombus, which is pretty much the same shape as a diamond. At least that's how Mrs. Whiston has explained it when she taught it to us. Now to explain how it's played. First, Mrs. Whiston would call it a math problem, like 4 times 8. Whoever was up to kick had to answer the math problem correctly. If you answered it incorrectly, you got a strike. 3 strikes, and you're out. If you got it right, she would roll the ball. After kicking the ball, the team in the outfield could catch the ball, but it didn't get you out. In order to get someone out, the other team had to make a basket in the hoop closest to home base before you were able to run around the bases and make it home. If you made it home before they could make a basket, your team scored a point. Justin had tried to pass me the kickball so I could make a shot since I was closest to the hoop. Come on, TJ, you should have caught it, one of my classmates called out. I did, I called back, with my face. As the other team laughed, Sarah managed to recover the ball and make a basket just before Jasmine reached home plate. Boo! The other team hissed. Simmer down, Mrs. Whiston ordered as Joseph handed her the handball. Easy out, someone from the outfield shouted as Jefferson approached the plate. That's a name, Mrs. Whiston called out. I was just kidding, Shanika called back. If Marcus was the best boy athlete in our school, Shanika was definitely the best girl athlete. And even though I'm not good at sports with a ball, Jefferson is no good at sports. Period. At least I think he's not. I've never actually seen him play any. He's usually reading a good book during recess. Comments stay in our mind, Mrs. Whiston shouted. Not in our mouth, we all finished. Make good choices, Mrs. Whiston said for the umpteenth time today. Okay, Jefferson, 9 times 9. Even though we all knew he would get it right, we all moved in close to home plate. It's an automatic home run if anyone passes me, Mrs. Whiston reminded us. Jackson took a few steps back, just in case. What happened next caught everyone by surprise. At least I think everyone. It all happened so fast that I'm not even sure anyone moved until after Jefferson reached second base. It was either extreme talent or extreme luck. I'm not even sure Shanika had kicked the ball that far during her last turn at plate. By the time Shanika even reached the ball, Jefferson had already reached home plate where his teammates were waiting and cheering. Who knew? A bookworm who could kick a ball as well as he could read. We continued to play kickball basketball until Mrs. Whiston noticed our school secretary, Mrs. Kelly, walking towards us with the boy I hadn't seen before, not too far behind her. Okay, everyone, water break, Mrs. Whiston announced. Everyone started running across the blacktop towards the drinking fountains. Our school had one at the end of every wing. Can you believe it? Justin said as he waited behind me for a drink of water. Believe what? I asked, wiping water from my chin. Really? He asked before getting his own drink of water. Really? I have no idea what you're talking about, I said, walking back towards the basketball court. Jefferson, TJ. Jefferson, Justin exclaimed. I know that Justin is excited about what just happened, but I can't help wondering about the new kid with Mrs. Kelly. As everyone returned to the basketball court, Mrs. Kelly walked back towards the office. Boys and girls, Mrs. Whiston said while motioning to the new kid, this is Victor. Hi, Victor, the class said in unison. Now, I know that we would normally do introductions at this time, but our computer lab time starts in a couple of minutes, so we'll save that for later, Mrs. Whiston explained. Make sure to grab your sweaters and jackets, and let's head to the computer lab. Number order, Jefferson announced with the clipboard in his hand. This week it was his turn to be line monitor. Everyone quickly made two lines behind this week's line leaders, number 7 and number 22. Shoes, Jessica called out. Jessica's number 7. Behind shoes, everyone responded. Arms, Jordan called out. Jordan is number 22. Length apart, everyone called back. Victor, you can stand in the back with me, Jefferson said as he wrote something down on the paper that the clipboard was holding. Thank you, Jefferson, Mrs. Whiston said. Thank you, Jefferson, someone mimicked a bit too loudly. That's a name, Mrs. Whiston said for the second time since we had come outside. Victor had stayed still while everyone else was lining up, not knowing where he was supposed to stand. He seemed to have never seen such a process before. He even jumped a little when Jessica and Jordan shouted out their commands, whereas no one else in Mrs. Whiston's class seemed affected by the volume of their voices. I guess they didn't have the Recess Revitalization Foundation at Victor's old school. Leaders, Jessica called out, but not as loudly as last time. May lead, Jefferson replied. Jessica and Jordan led our class just outside the computer lab and stopped. Mrs. Whiston came to the front of the lines and used her classroom key to open the door. As she did this, Jefferson walked to the front of the lines and inspected each line carefully. After a moment of tapping his pencil on his chin, he pointed at Jordan's line. As Jordan led his line into computer lab, people from his line cheered quietly, while people from Jessica's line groaned quietly. People were Both were short-lived once everyone saw Jefferson put his pencil to the paper. Once inside the computer lab, everyone knew which station to go to. Everyone except for Victor, who had just stood at the front of the room quietly. Okay, everyone, please sign into Math Munchers while I set Victor up on a computer, Mrs. Whiston instructed, motioning for Victor to take a seat at the back of the room where there were 3 empty stations. While Mrs. Whiston was helping Victor, an announcement came through the phone speaker. Mrs. Whiston, please call the office. Mrs. Whiston, please call the office. It was Principal Martinez's voice, which caused everyone to whisper. We usually only heard Mrs. Kelly or Mr. Ellis's voice on the intercom. We only ever heard Principal Martinez's voice at the end of the day on Fridays, when he was making important announcements, like which class had perfect attendance for the week, who had been caught being healthy, or who had done an act of random kindness. While using the phone at the front of the room, Mrs. Whiston turned and looked at me. I know. I should be practicing my mathematics skills on Math Munchers. But sometimes I can be a bit, what's the right word? Nosy. TJ, Mrs. Whiston called after hanging up the phone. Mr. Martinez wants to see you in his office. Ooh, the whole class chimed. Seems they're a bit nosy too. TJ, Principal Martinez greeted me enthusiastically with a handshake. Principal Martinez, I said with a little less enthusiasm, since I had no idea why he had called me into his office. I mean, I hadn't even gotten in trouble lately. Take a seat, TJ, he instructed while motioning to the round table in front of his desk. So, I said, a bit confused. What's up? I know I called you here out of the blue, he began, but I need your help, TJ. My help? Why would the principal of the school need my help? I mean, he runs the entire school. All he has to do is say that there's a new rule, and everyone has to follow it. Even the teachers. He must have read the confusion on my face because he sat back in his chair in a more relaxed position and began to explain what he meant. It's like this. Mrs. Kelly just added a new student to your class, right? He asked. I nodded my head without saying a word. Victor has been transferred to this school after being expelled from his old school, he continued. Actually, ours is the 4th school he's been to in the past 3 months. Whoa, I said, reacting without actually meaning to. Whoa is right, he responded. And I'd like to put a stop to that. Stop to what? I asked, still confused as to why I was there. It seems Victor has a hard time making good friends at his old school. He always seemed to find friends that led him in the wrong direction, he continued. And that concerns me because, I said, as more of a question. Because this seems just like the challenge the TJ League would enjoy, he said, finally getting to the point. I don't know, I said, not too excited about accepting such a mission. But I guess I could talk it over with the rest of the guys and see what they think. Who knows? This may end up being the easiest mission we've ever had to complete. By the time I got back to the computer lab, my class was already lining up to go back to class, which meant there was only like 10 minutes of school left.